So hey everyone, my name's Adam Rush. I'm a resident of West Urbana and just wanted to sort of invite everyone to get together to talk about COVID and what we are doing in our neighborhood, and how we're all dealing with this disease, this virus that is going around. So I have invited to join us some members of the Greek community. In addition to being a member of the West Urbana neighborhood, I am also a national board member for Beta Sigma Psi Fraternity. So I reached out to Clayton, Clayton Vought, the president of Beta Sigma Psi Fraternity here at the University of Illinois. And he talked with Evan Fouts, who is from Chi Psi Fraternity, and Nicholas Clemens from Farmhouse Fraternity. And so they're here to just sort of tell us what they are doing on campus to stay safe as students, and maybe they can tell us what they're doing in their respective fraternity houses to try to stay safe living in a group living environment, which I'm sure is much more difficult than just me with my wife and 2 kids. I can only imagine being back in the house with 15 to 50 guys to deal with, depending on how big of a house you're living in. Yeah, so I'm just gonna turn it over to the 3 of you guys, let you introduce yourselves, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
So I'm Clayton Vought. I'm the president of Beta Sigma Psi.
I'm Evan Fouts. I'm the president of Chi Psi.
I'm Nicholas Clemens. I'm the president of Farmhouse.
And I guess I can get started with kind of our guidelines at Beta Sigma Psi. A little bit about our house. We are at 706 West Ohio Street. As a group, there are 16 members currently, and there are 10 living in the house. Let me see if I can share my screen. We have a document that our alumni kind of created for us in preparation of moving in. Can you guys see this all right?
Yes.
Okay, I can just skim through it. I guess the big ones here are having an isolated space for anyone that tests positive. Kind of how our house is laid out. We have 2 floors, about 5 bedrooms on the first floor with a single bathroom, and a second floor with 15 rooms and a kind of communal bathroom. So kind of if a member is showing symptoms, or now the university is testing twice a week, which is huge in detecting the virus, they will be relocated to our first floor. That way they're just isolated from everyone else, and they have their own bathroom. Their meals are set at their hallway door that they can just pick up to minimize interaction. The front door of our chapter house is the only entrance, and at the front door we have our thermometer, no contact, so it's just on the forehead, extra sets of gloves, extra sets of masks, hand sanitizer, just everything that you would have at a station. They gave us, I think this is just a CDC guideline overall, the 50 people capacity, in which the city now has put, I think it's 10 people plus the residents. So for guys in the house, every day we have them take their temperature, fill it out in like a Google Sheet so that everyone can kind of see how everyone is doing. And along with our daily duties, just sanitizing everything that we need to in the house, railings, doorknobs. And I can go a little bit, tell you guys a little bit about our move-in. So we spread out move-in over 3 days. I think it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. August 14th through 16th. Everybody stayed in their respective rooms until their test results were in. And once we got everyone's negative test results, they were able to hang out in common areas per these guidelines. So when you're outside of your room, you're wearing masks and stuff. With our move-in, one member tested positive. So it's a good thing we had those guidelines set in place before we moved in. And so he was put in the isolation zone as soon as we got his result back. And after that, all members are still negative. So I think that isolation zone was really good for our move-in. And he tested positive on the 18th. So his 2-week kind of quarantine period is in 2 days on Tuesday. So at that point, he is going to go get retested and see if he's negative. And then once he's negative, he can kind of move back into the second floor. So that's pretty much all I have. So I'll hand it off to one of you guys.
I can kind of go next. And other than a lot of the same stuff that Clayton was talking about, quarantine rooms within the house, we disinfect 4 times a day, things along those lines, temperature checks, and all of those CDC recommendations and following suit with the university. The university's been a giant help with testing and requiring it, because then it even takes it out of our hands. Just to be students on campus, you have to get tested. And so that helps us a lot, because we know that they're getting tested. And the biggest thing that we've kind of installed so far is just kind of how people are thinking about it. The biggest thing I've seen within our generation right now is that just not taking it serious enough, and not realizing that even if it might not affect us a terrible amount right now, that it affects the people around us. Like, even if we go home and our grandmothers and grandfathers or parents. And I think that that's the biggest thing that I've liked from our chapter, other than all the policies, is talking about it seriously. Taking even if you haven't had direct contact with somebody that has it, but you were in a high risk environment, realizing that and maybe getting an extra test that week or doing something along those lines. And so honestly, I could go over all of our policies if people would like me to, but the biggest thing that I've seen is just the fact that people are taking it seriously and understand that it's not even just about us, it's about the community, both in Champaign and Urbana, and our own families and things along those lines.
Absolutely, yeah. As Clayton mentioned, I mean, we have a lot of the same guidelines as far as move-in. We've required brothers to get tested as soon as they arrived, and quarantine or isolate in the room until they receive their test result. And we have the same kind of rules as long as, considering masks, they're required in any common area in the lodge, which is just what we call our building. And all brothers have been distributed their university PPE kits, as well as our central office sent in extra masks, and our alumni have purchased a large amount of masks. So if anyone needs it, or if we have a guest over, then we're able to provide those. Hand sanitizer is available in every single room. We have the same kind of thing with meals, where they're individually packaged. So we aren't just all self-serving from the same communal tray. And once again, yeah, we have cleaning duties that are done once a week at the very least, and sanitizing in between any kind of event. And we have professional cleaners that come in every Saturday, that they do a deeper clean just to make sure that we're as sanitary as possible. And as far as the guests, we are only allowing 1 guest per brother at any time, and no more than 10 guests total, which is in accordance with that Urbana executive order where any non-resident is limited to 10 at any point in time. And any guest is required to, prove that they have a recent negative test with that Safer Illinois app, which has been fantastic help. It shows like your building access and your status, and that's been really essential to just having that concrete evidence of, okay, you have a recent test, we're feeling better about that. And then we also have them sign in. So they put their name, net ID, the time and date, and it's signed by the brother who brought them. That way we have a record of who's there at any point in time. And, if we ever need to do contact tracing, we can do it through there. We're also not a very big fraternity. We have 32 members and only 17 people living in. So that has helped in terms of just, we don't have any large gatherings, but still to mitigate any risk, our weekly meetings have been moved to Zoom. We have twice a week study hours that we do that are now on Zoom. And per the PHC and IFC order, all social events are canceled. So we won't be having any events like that. The only events that we have had are recruitment events, which are still limited to the 10 guests. We have them sign in just like any other guest. And the same kind of rules apply where masks are required the whole time, social distancing, and frequent hand sanitizer use. And definitely we use the elbow bump instead of handshakes for sure, just to mitigate any risk we can. And we have the same thing with if we do see a positive result, we have a designated wing for them to stay in for at least 2 weeks, where then they can test again, and brothers will deliver food to their door, and then they have their own designated bathroom just for them to use, just to make sure that we're limiting the interaction with that brother. And then of course we'll make an announcement to all the brothers, their families, about the situation, and then use that same sign-in sheet that we have to do any contact tracing necessary. So going off what Nicholas said, it's just extremely important that all the brothers understand how serious the situation is. I think our brothers have a grasp on this is not just for yourself. This is really for your community. You're keeping others safe. So that's our top priority.
So I actually kind of wanted to ask a follow-up, since you mentioned using the Safer Illinois app to help screen the people who come into your house as guests. As undergraduate students, is that something that you guys have seen like catching on just in the community, just with other students type of a deal?
I've seen, at least with my friend group, it's kind of it's like a half joke, half serious thing where it's like, yeah, you have to have building access to come see me. It's like it's just a nice way to kind of check in and make sure that they've had a recent test, and of course what's really important is just being honest. If you've been around a lot of people, it's probably best to stay home and maybe see your friends next week. Just make sure you have that limited social circle.
To kind of add to Evan, I know a lot of not only just like school buildings, but a lot of like local campus town restaurants and bars are kind of using that Safer app or Safer Illini app to allow them into their establishment. So I think that's also good, and kind of just a peace of mind if you're going to get food that other people have been getting tested and result negative and have building access.
And something that the app does that's really good that I've noticed is that it lets us ask to see kind of personal information, but without actually seeing any personal information at all. You can ask for to show the building access screen, and you can see what color it is, and that's all you need. You don't need to get something from the health department that has other tests and other things that they've gone and done. It's just quick, and it's very, if I don't know the person, I don't feel like I'm invading their personal life by seeing what color their app is flashing.
That's really good insight. Thank you. So I had a few questions emailed to me ahead of time to ask you guys. So I sort of wanted to ask those before I turned it over to everyone in attendance to ask their questions too, just in case there's any redundancies. So the first one is, how will your organizations respond if there's someone in your house who is repeatedly violating safety guidelines?
I know through ours, a big thing for me has been the support I've had from our international and our advisors, as in they told me that if somebody is continuously breaking rules to a point that as our exec team, it's not all on me because that'd be a lot of power for one person, but as an exec team, if we feel that it is endangering the house or endangering the community, that it's within our rights to initiate evicting people. If it comes to that, that there will be warnings, there will be fines, but then if it really comes to it and we feel like it is unsafe enough and they aren't working with us enough, that we can take it all the way to asking them to return home for the rest of the semester, because we don't want to take the risk and we don't want to risk other people. And so that is a power that we've discussed, but luckily haven't had to come near using.
Our house is the same way. With that guideline sheet, we had everyone read through that and essentially sign a new housing contract. So breaking these guidelines is breaking the contract in terms for, like Nicholas said, evicting and having them go back home if they're putting other people at risk. So.
Yeah, and we have a very similar system where they would be given a warning on their first offense, and then after that we can, depending on the severity, go with a fine, or we also have a judicial board set up where on a major violation, we would bring the case up to our. It's a mixture of our executive board and a few other members, and we would just approach the case, and if it is severe enough, like Nicholas mentioned, I mean, we have the power to vote them to leave the premises because they're making the environment unsafe, and that's just unacceptable.
All right, thanks. Next question is, if people in the community see flagrant violations of the kind of guidelines, that we have in place in our for Urbana and Champaign County, like very large group gatherings and group activities close together without masks, how should neighbors respond? The notice that the city has put out that residents can call the police non-emergency number, but can other steps be taken? And I'm not just talking about your house, but other student groups around town.
Yeah, I have seen somewhere online that there was a specific number that you can call, like specifically for mask violations. If you see, a lot of people not wearing masks, or specifically for just like large gatherings, I can try to find that before the call ends and send it in the chat. But that would just be a different step other than the non-emergency number. And then of course, feel free to contact me directly. I can put my contact information in the chat as well. If you ever, think it's anywhere near us, just let us know and we can address the situation.
As much as all the same, I can put my contact information in so everyone can contact me directly. But as much as a lot of people would see it, or at least some people would see it as too far to contact either university police or somebody, I know that they are taking it very seriously, and they have communicated to us ways to make it easier, having a roster on standby. And so if they show up, it can be pretty easy if we're following the rules, and it might just look bad. Like having a roster so we can see who actually lives in the house, and to kind of make it quick for everybody, but also let our residents have the peace of mind that if they do call, it is being responded to in a timely manner, just to make sure if it looks like something's going on. And so other than contacting me, contacting the number, and so they can come by and just check in and make sure that we're following city ordinances and things along those lines. We haven't had any issue with that so far, with that being a big production or anything. And as long as the people have the good head on their shoulders, it's not a big issue at all when the authorities show up just to ask and make sure everything's okay.
Like these two said, I'll go ahead and put my contact information in there as well. And along with those numbers and stuff, I can think of maybe contacting IFC or University FSA, just like kind of the council of fraternities, because they express their kind of expectations with us pretty clearly when we have a president's council. So.
All right, thanks, gentlemen. And the last question I have sent in is, since this virus is spreading through close contact, what considerations are students taking regarding sexual activity and other intimate contact between romantic partners?
Yeah, I mean, this is just another thing where it's limiting your social circles. So just understanding how many people you're interacting with, in any given week or in between your test periods, especially since they're done every 4 days. That does help a lot, but that doesn't mean you can just see anyone you want to. So definitely just, I mean, obviously we can't control what you do outside of the fraternity, but we can suggest and recommend that see as few people as you can, and just understand who you're interacting with.
My biggest thing with this is just knowing that people in the house are taking it seriously. We don't, as Evan said, we can't police everything they do outside the house, but we can inform them of the risks and know that they understand what is going on and understand how easily things could go south with it. And just trying to spread the word that there's gonna be plenty of time to be a teenager or a young adult and do whatever the heck you want. Now just might not be the right time to do that. And so it's just having kind of honest conversations with people about making sure they're not doing things that they're going to regret or we're going to have to regret in the following weeks and months.
Yeah, like those two said, obviously can't control people outside of the house, but I think a good way to police that inside is our guest policy. Just our guest policy and our log at the front door, showing a recent test and knowing when and what day they came in and out and who brought them in. So we contact that and have the correct people kind of isolate. I know restaurants on campus too are doing their part. Kind of when you go as a group, you kind of stay within that group, and they have their tables 6 feet apart, and I think that's really helpful.
And another thing kind of on this topic is just kind of to highlight the seriousness that at least we're talking about it in. I know I love my family and love hanging out with them, but going home in March and staying until August was tough. We take care of my grandma, and so it was a lockdown environment in my house where I didn't get to leave or see anybody. And so kind of what I'm voicing to my chapter is if people want to stay on campus, if they would like to spend the rest of the semester on campus, then we have to take it seriously. We have to do the right things. Otherwise, it's just going to be another 6 months at home, which some people might love and some people might want to come back to campus and have the freedom that we all get used to having, even if it might have some parameters around it.
All right, thanks. So I'll go ahead and open it up to the floor if anybody else has questions for the presidents here.
Okay, Adam, this is Pete Sauer.
Hey, Pete, how's it going?
Hey, it's okay. And I want to say a few things. First of all, I'm very proud of all you guys. You seem to be doing the right things and you got the right attitude. I was an ADA member of Beta Sig from 1964 to 69. And that was a rather wild group down there. And I wouldn't trust them for a second. But I was your faculty, I was your faculty advisor for many years. And I really appreciate what you're doing. I think you're doing a great job. And I wish you more power to you. And thanks for having this session. I'll hang on.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
Other questions?
This is Peggy Patton. Thanks again for hosting this. And I will echo what Mr. Sauer said, which is I'm really impressed with the seriousness and attention the three presidents have expressed. And as someone who lives in the neighborhood, it means a whole lot. I guess my question is, are you guys unusual among your peers in the fraternity council, or do you think you represent pretty typical approaches among the fraternities and sororities in town? I mean, that might be an impossible question to answer, but I mean, you talk to your peer group, and are you guys sort of standouts, outliers, as it were? Or are others taking it as seriously as your houses are?
From what I've seen, people are taking it seriously. Being honest with all of you, there is different buy-in from people. It's just people are different. People gauge risk differently. And some people just, it's more important to them to do things that are considered risky now than others. And so from the presidents I've talked to, I've been happy with their responses about them taking it seriously. And so then hopefully they can at least help gauge and corral if they see the risks. But as I kind of mentioned earlier about it not being a bad idea for community members to call the university police department or something, is that I know I'm taking 18 credit hours this semester and looking for internships already. And so I can't always be around and I can't always gauge everybody and what they're doing in a day. So it not only helps to have other leaders in the house who are willing to step in if something's wrong, but also community members who are willing to raise a red flag if they think something's going wrong. So then when we have the time, we can look into it.
Absolutely. And if I could just expand on something that Nicholas mentioned earlier, we do have our IFC, which is the Interfraternity Council. They're an organization that's part of the university, and we have our weekly President's Council. It's a Zoom meeting where we all get together and they'll just go over any new guidelines or just reiterate, the important things that we need to know. So that's been a great resource and just, keeping tabs on everybody. And from what I've seen in that, the people who have spoken up in the meetings, they all seem to be buying into that. But of course, I mean, you can lead a horse to water. I mean, they're giving us lots of guidance, and we all really appreciate it. But of course, there might be those outliers, unfortunately.
It was very well said by you two. I don't know if I have too much to add, but Like they said, we have our IFC, and they give us everything that we need to know, but it just depends how they take it and how they disperse it among their members.
Thank you.
Okay. I know that there's various people here from different organizations in the community who may or may not want to say anything. But one person who did reach out to me earlier who said she'd be willing to speak is Dr. Smith. She happens to be an epidemiologist and happens to be a member of the SHIELD team doing the testing on campus. She is not officially representing the university or anything like that, but she is a West Urbana resident. So just wanted to say, if you guys have any questions for her about the testing that you are doing as university students, or if anybody has any questions about the kinds of things that are being done in general to, study, contain, and treat this virus, I think she'd be a great person to answer some questions.
Hi, I have a question. So my husband's a faculty member, and his most recent test, the results took almost 3 days to come back, which is far longer than the earlier tests, which all came back on the same day. And there's been no word from the university about delays. And I wonder if anybody knows anything about this and why the university has been quiet about these delays. And I say these delays because his students also told him that their results were taking a long time to come back.
Yeah, we know the delays they're concerning to all of us. So we're more concerned, I think, than anybody. Just kind of for a sense of what's going on. Prior to last Monday, our best day was just over 10,000 tests. On Monday, over 17,000 people came for testing. So that's a huge increase, and the lab got slammed. They're catching up. They're installing robots. They're going to go faster and faster as they go on, but just the amount of work that the lab has done to scale up to this point has been amazing. They're going to do more. We're always pushing to do more, do faster. We don't want this level of delay. Less than anybody else does, because we know what it means as far as the spread of the virus. So yeah, we know it's a problem. We're doing everything we can to try to get around it, but for right now, they're just going to try to scale up as quickly as they can, get the robots online, move to a slightly different testing method, smaller tubes and straws, so that they can process straight to the robot and straight into the machines. They're just doing everything they can to get it up online. And the lab has been working 24/7. And I'm not joking, there's 3 shifts and there's people there. The leader of the lab effort is showing up in the lab at 2 a.m. to run samples. Everybody's working all out. So we know the delays are there and we're not happy with them. We're doing the best we can.
I did see the number of tests jump up on Monday, and I was fairly certain that the answer that you just told me was in fact what was going on. But it would be helpful if there was some communication about this. I mean, I think everybody who knows about what the university is doing thinks it's wonderful. And we know how hard it is. And it would just be nice if there was some communication that said, oh, we really had a lot of tests on Monday. We have a little delay. We're working to be able to do that many tests. It would just make people feel better to hear that.
Yeah, I'll let the communications team know that they should send something out. Your husband will have seen, and the students will have seen the message that went out last week about the schedules. Schedules were me. I was trying to schedule, and it didn't work. So we dropped it. We're creating something from scratch. So we'll let you know as things change, but yeah, I'll let the communications team know that a message about testing times would be helpful.
Thanks.
Hi, Robin. This is Pete Sauer again. That brought up a question that I had. I read somebody, I'm not sure you can believe it. I got it in email, an article that said that the error rate on the testing at the U of I was significant. Can you talk about that at all? Maybe I think it was New York Times or something. What is the accuracy of the test?
We have yet to have a false positive. So in all of our testing, we never got a false positive. There are false negatives. We're not sure why, but likely some of the false negatives are because it's too early in the infection process, because it takes a few days to get enough virus in your system for us to be able to detect it. And some of them might have been because it was later in the infection process, so the swabs will still be picking it up, but you're not infectious anymore. That said, I think, Clayton, you said something about people needing a negative test to get out of isolation. I'd say follow the CUPHD guidelines on isolation, because even with saliva, some people are persistent positives, that they'll be positive for weeks and they're not infectious. The lab will say that it will come back positive, but they'll check and they say, no, it's nothing. But no, it's a very good test. It's diagnostic test evaluation is one of my specialties. And so I ran the numbers myself, and the accuracy is quite good.
And one thing I wanted to add, kind of from the university standpoint, is I know that the university itself is taking this extremely seriously. I think I get 3 to 4 emails a day from the university with different updates and different things about COVID or how we're doing or things that they've seen. And so I know that the university is pumping a lot of funds and a lot of resources into trying to make this work. And they're doing, sometimes some people would see it as an annoying amount of communication, but they're doing a lot of communication with the student body. And so, of course, it'd be good to also let the community know in ways about different stuff. But I know that we are getting lots of information as things change and things along those lines.
Hi, I'm going to jump in here and ask a question both of Rebecca and also to the 3 guys. First, to the 3 presidents, I wanted to say thanks very much for making yourselves available to the community. It's really important, and it's very reassuring that you're doing that. On that note, there is a 4th fraternity in the neighborhood. I live on Ohio Street, and I live on the opposite end of the street from you guys. And the big house just across the street, I think it's Omega Delta moved in. And so I was wondering why they're not on this call, because they're also a fraternity who's living in our Luna neighborhood. So I would just recommend that maybe if you guys, as part of the fraternity council, want to keep everybody in the loop, it would be great to have them as part of these as well. They were great. They had a car wash or something this weekend, and they went around to the neighbors and said, we're doing this, and open communications. And I think that that's actually just the most important thing when living within the residential streets of Urbana, is to make sure the communications are open. So I really appreciate that, but maybe reach out with your other brothers as well. That would be super helpful to the residents here in town. Rebecca, I had a question for you, since you're the first person from the SHIELD team that I've ever been able to talk to. I'm also a university professor, and so I'm doing the testing and following along what's going on. And I was wondering if, because this is not something I've seen anywhere within our myriad of publications and videos that came out over the summer, which is, it looks like this week there were on average between about 60 to 100 positive tests that came back a day. And I looked at the CUPHD counter yesterday that said that in our 61801 zip code, there's 9 active cases. whereas the campus zip code of 61802 or 820 has about 340 active cases, meaning, and we know that that's mostly campus and campus town. There's a lot of infection amongst the students that's coming up. And I know the idea is that in the first 2.5 weeks or so, we're going to see they expected to see high numbers of students came back to campus, and that should drop off as people are put into quarantine and they get better and they pass out of being infectious. My question is there a policy from the SHIELD team and the university that if that number of infections per day and per week does not go down, that we start thinking about having students go back to their respective homes?
So yes, the quick answer to that question is yes. I was just texting with our modeler today to say there are some concerning things with dorm outbreaks, and we're going to keep an eye on that and talk to some people about it, because if there are too many outbreaks, he and I will go to the provost and say it's time to shut down potentially. And we realize that we need to make sure that message is out to the students that if some of these outbreaks continue to happen, we will recommend shutting down.
That's good to know, because we haven't had much messaging on that, on the kind of faculty and community side of it. And I know you guys talked about, like, I think Nicholas, it was you who said that being at home for 6 months wasn't necessarily your optimal plan, and so you're trying to stress to your brothers that you want to keep everybody safe so that we don't do this. And on the faculty side, we want our students to be safe and healthy, and as a resident in the community, we also want everybody to be safe and healthy and not spread it outside of campus. So I'm glad to hear that this is a discussion. I wish the university could somehow telegraph that to our community as well as to the broader CU community a little more. But thank you so much for answering that, Rebecca.
And Heather, just so you know, the current dashboard for the university has the positive tests have not been unduplicated. So there are people who have tested positive multiple times. Remember, I said some people remain positive.
Yeah.
Those people are still in there. Hopefully tomorrow we'll have a new rollout of the dashboard that will actually have the number of unique cases per day.
Right. Yeah,
which
that's
will
why
be a little closer to CUPHD, but CUPHD doesn't put them on the website until they've finished case investigation.
Right.
So we're putting them up after we get the tests. They will put them up after they've talked to them and actually done all of the case investigation parts.
Okay,
so the numbers will never be perfectly matching.
Yeah, I didn't think they would, and I figured that our campus counts were including multiple people, the same person testing multiple times, which is why I went with the CUPH numbers, but I just wanted to make sure that, we're all on the same page with stuff. Thanks so much.
Yeah, we've been spending the weekend going back and forth on the new dashboards, so hopefully that will go up Monday and you'll be able to see a little bit more detail, more useful detail.
Great, thanks.
Hi, my name is Mary Alice Wu. I am the city council representative for Ward 1, and I had a question about any kind of guidance that the fraternities are giving in terms of going home, visiting home.
We are just kind of saying, be safe. We know you probably have the friends who are home who are online, or you have the friends who are working, went straight into the job field. And it's just, again, being safe. And when they come back, there might be a little bit more of, hey, Chris, I know that you went home last weekend and I know you got tested yesterday. Can I see your test results when you get them so that I can make sure? And then we just have to rely on honesty and being aware, temperatures being taken when you come into the building. And so if somebody has a crazy fever, then immediately quarantining or isolating and doing things like that. But especially with things like that, it really comes down to trust and trusting that the members are being safe and doing what's best for themselves in the house.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say much more than what Nicholas said. I mean, it would pretty much be the same procedure as move-in. As soon as you're off campus, you would be treated as if you were coming back just like the beginning of the school year. So get your test done as soon as possible and quarantine until you get that result.
We too kind of follow the same rules as move in. Just try to stay in your room until we see a test result. I know one guy told me specifically he was staying away from us a little bit because he wanted to leave the house to go home and didn't want to spread it to his family. So I guess I could see it both sides, both going home and coming back, kind of isolating a little bit.
And I know kind of along those lines as well, one thing that I've heard a lot from my peers is that we're going to get sent home anyways. Let's have a good time while we're here. And I personally, I mean, my peers from my hometown, I haven't heard anybody in my house say that, luckily, but from my hometown, that's what my friends in the group chats will say at their universities. Like, all my friends and I are just trying to have a good time while we're here. And I know one thing I've talked about with my house is that it is a possibility that campus shuts down. And then at that point, we have to earn the ability to even think about staying. We have to earn the ability to say, hey, we had one positive case maybe, but they isolated and quarantined and they came back and it didn't spread. Or we haven't had any and we took every scare very seriously. But at that point that campus shuts down, we have to be able to prove that we deserve staying. And even along those lines, I've told people that I won't hesitate that if campus shuts down and we do stay, that if there are people who weren't following the rules, that I'm not going to fight for them to stay after campus shuts down, because to me, they'd be part of the issue. And so every member, I'm trying to get through people's heads that every member at this point is having to earn their way on to staying on campus, even if it shuts down.
I'm just curious, guys, do you and your friends know how many people across the country are watching you right now? All of the epidemiologists across the country are watching us. They tell me this. We give them hope. So they are actually watching us. There are very, very famous people within my field who reach out to me and say, I hope you guys can do it. So spread that word. There's a lot of people watching us, wondering if, and there was a recent article that said, if any university can stay open, it's Illinois. So we're hopeful, but we need everybody.
And I know one thing Fraternity and Sorority Affairs has said, sort of as a joke and sort of as a serious piece of it, is you don't want to be the house that has 25 people come down with it and is known as the reason why it spreads across campus like wildfire. At the end of the day, as much as we don't want that for our health, we also don't want that for people coming to campus next fall and people looking to join our brotherhoods. That's definitely a part of it, is just all the eyes that are watching all of us go about our everyday lives at this point.
And I know myself and a lot of the guys in our house, even though all of my classes are online, I just find it a lot easier to study here. No offense to my parents, but I do just like just being on campus. Just kind of gets you in the mood to study and get your work done.
Yeah, thank you guys for recognizing that. That's one of the incredible things about being part of a giant research university like we're in, is having the opportunities to do these kinds of things that also benefit us greatly while also advancing science. So, yeah. Our hour is kind of wrapping up, and that's what I advertise this for. So do we have a couple more questions? Anything else that anyone wants to say?
Thank you.
I know real quick, one thing that I would want to say is that I wouldn't worry as a community about reaching back out if you think you're seeing things that are going really poorly, or things that, I think a big thing for me is how our house looks from the community. And so even outside of COVID, just being able to have meetings like these, now that we're all used to Zoom and things, where we can talk about how we can better look to the community and act around the community, since we know we're smack dab in residential streets, and how we can work better together. Because I feel like, especially when I first joined, it wasn't the house against community, but it was like, we're the house and we have to know that the community's there. And so I think that I would definitely push and ask you guys that if you see things that you know look really bad and you want to know more, or you just I could ask you guys to tell us that, so then we can change as a house to not only benefit you guys, but also benefit ourselves. And so hopefully everybody wins and everybody can enjoy Champaign Urbana.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say thank you very much, Adam, and all of you from the fraternities. This has been very enlightening to me. I'm sorry I got involved a little late. And I'll just say that if everybody on the university was as responsible as you guys seem to want to be, we'd have no problem. The university's science is incredible, as Rebecca has mentioned. Let's hope they get the robots working. My only concern, and I'm going to take this up with Adam later, is the community student body. You all can't control that, as you've pointed out many times. That's our concern here, I think, in Urbana and probably Champaign as well. Maybe you guys can think about how you can reach out to students outside of your fraternity community and help promote responsible behavior and appreciation of what the university is doing in this regard. And thank you again.
Yeah, and I'll just say on my part, I'm I know that on the Wunda list, I've been a very staunch proponent of students and talking about how we need to work with students and keep in touch with them and support them. And I'm obviously biasing this conversation a little bit by bringing you, in my opinion, the very best. The members of our fraternity and sorority communities are student leaders who consistently score above the all-campus average, who are in the best, some of the best RSOs on campus. And these are men and women who lead organizations that have histories of decades or centuries, or over 100 years. And they obviously care a lot about their reputation as being part of a group like that. And I'd just like to say, on my part, this is just me speaking, I think that we, as West Urbana permanent residents, should take advantage of that, in that these are students that have organizations and communities that can be ambassadors to all of the student body, and sort of say to them, let's all put our best foot forward and be the best we can be. All right, well, with all that, thank you everyone for participating. Thank you to Clayton, Evan, and Nicholas for speaking with us today, and with Dr. Smith for sharing all that very interesting information about all the testing process. And thank you to everyone who asked questions and brought up some great points for our discussion. So I'll leave it at that. I'm going to go ahead and sign off here for the recording, and say goodbye to all of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.